Inge Eberhard's life, now Inge Sargent, is like a folktale. A young Austrian girl becomes a princess in Burma unexpectedly and is plunged into political instability and tragedy. Inge faced a terrifying mystery behind her vast castles, colorful festivals, and gorgeous title of Mahadevi. Prince Sao Kya Seng, her beloved spouse, was arrested after Burma's 1962 military takeover. What happened to him? The silence concerning her husband's death haunted her for decades. She eventually shared her beliefs toward the end of 2023. Her story's followers were devastated when it confirmed long-held worries. What dreadful truth did she die with? A trip by Princess Inge of Burma would confirm our suspicions. The dream of an Austrian brave girl. Despite her humble Austrian upbringing, Inge Eberhard had big goals as a child. A gamekeeper and his wife had her in Austria in the early 1930s. In the beautiful but rural countryside she lived. Even though they loved and supported Inge, her parents assumed she would follow a more typical adult path that kept her near to home. Inge wanted to experience new things and have adventures since she was a child. Her parents didn't grasp this requirement. Inge had high grades and pleased her professors with her intelligence and tenacity. Many of her peers had never imagined the chances her outstanding grades provided her, and Inge began to picture a life beyond Austria. Travel stories fascinated her, and she loved reading about exotic places. And imagined living in a multilingual, multicultural place. Reading increased her want to travel and experience new things. Applying to colleges outside Austria after high school was courageous for a young Austrian woman. Her family, thrilled and worried, saw her apply to American schools. They said goodbye, but were thrilled when she got into Danvers University in Colorado. Inge's travel to America was her first taste of freedom and a step toward her dream life. She had no idea that this journey would introduce her to the intriguing foreign student and start a life of love, royalty, and grief that would be beyond her expectations. Inge adjusted quickly to Colorado. College has interesting folks from diverse backgrounds with their own tales and cultures. At a student gathering one night, she observed a shy, quiet young man standing alone and looked thoughtfully at the crowd. She shortly learned his name was Sao Kya Seng. His native Burma seemed foreign, distant, and enigmatic to most Americans. Inge was intrigued immediately. Though timid and shy, Kyo's force and knowledge attracted her. They started talking, and Inge was fascinated by his descriptions of Burma, which was unlike any other place she had gone. Kyo spoke proudly about his country and felt a sense of obligation. He also discussed his ambition to study engineering to improve his people's livelihood. Inge saw that this youngster was different from others his age. Their conversation deepened, displaying common dreams, beliefs, and goals. Curiosity and care brought them together despite their differences. Inge liked Kyo's kindness, knowledge, and purpose, while Kyo liked Inge's openness and desire to try new things. It seemed like their friendship blossomed into a predestined relationship. They shared their ambitions and goals for hours. They slowly developed a trust and affection that would take them across continents and into a surprising world. A simple American wedding. Inge and Sao became engaged in spring 1953. They married at a friend's house with few guests. No grand ceremony or displays were held. Their deep love was shown by their short vows. They were excited but anticipated issues would arise. Interracially married persons were unusual and looked down on. Some friends and acquaintances were optimistic, while others were skeptical. Inge and Kyo didn't care. Their love for each other and their future together was more important than race or culture. They eagerly discussed visiting Burma in the weeks after their wedding. Kyo recounted his country's vibrant festivals, history, and beauty. Inge got more eager to visit her husband's homeland as she listened. Kyo kept a significant secret from her, and she had no idea it would affect her life. Inge discovered her spouse was more than the kind-hearted student she married. She would be shocked. The frightening Burmese shore news. The journey to Burma was lengthy and exciting for Inge. She kept thinking about her new house. She anticipated living with her husband's family, learning their traditions, and joining a different society. When their ship docked in Burma, she was awestruck. A vast crowd cheered and held flowers as they watched the ship from the shore. Inge looked at Kyo confusedly to see who everyone was come for. Kyo stared at her proudly and apologized softly. He said they were glad to see him as Shan State's crown prince, not a student. Portion of Burma with some independence. With this stunning news, Inge scarcely understood what he was saying. Sao Kya Seng, her king spouse, loved her. The audience welcomed their boss and prince. Inge became a princess after marrying. Strong emotions arose. Inge entered an unfamiliar world. After getting off the ship, she was greeted with shouts, flowers, and royal respect. It was amazing how pleasant everyone was, but she couldn't shake the feeling that her life had changed in ways she couldn't explain. Inge was proud of her husband, but also responsible for him. She had to master this new role. However, her quest had only begun. Inge discovered that royal life had its challenges and demands as she adjusted to being a princess. Your life as Mahadevi, Princess of People. Inge lived like a Burmese princess in Burma after retiring as an Austrian student. The title Mahadevi meant heavenly patroness. It was spiritual and socially significant. She was revered by Shan state residents, watching her as the king's wife and a sign of safety and direction. Mahadevi was more than her name. A vow to help and care for the people, a tie between her and them. Her new existence was hard to adjust to. Inge lived a traditional life and spoke and did things with purpose. There were public events and cultural customs to learn, chores to complete. However, Inge was ready to repay the trust and welcomed it all. She gradually came to appreciate her new existence and Shan State's unique culture. Kyo and Inge, Shan State's new prince and princess, symbolized growth and prosperity. With his mining engineering education and lofty ideals, Kao wanted to change Burma's feudal system that kept most rural people poor and dependent on a few strong people. He aspired to overhaul Shan State and introduce modern technologies, better farming, and self-sustaining growth to his homeland. Inge saw supporting her husband's passion as a shared aim that made her feel more at home in Burma. Kao and Inge worked hard to change farming in their first few years in charge. They intended to make the area fertile and beneficial for the palace, local proprietors, and people. In contrast, Inge helped people in healthcare and schools. Her work helped open new schools so underprivileged children might learn. Their work spread, and Kyo and Inge became royal figures and progressive and just advocates. However, some disliked the adjustments. The rapid changes in Shan State worried strong people, especially in the central Burmese administration. Kyo's vision of a powerful Shan State was opposed by others who saw Burma's rural areas as resources to be exploited. The pair felt stress as rumors of disputes spread while working on their project. Their changes were courageous and maybe hazardous, but they believed they were necessary for Shan State and Burma's future. Inge supported her spouse despite rising resistance. She knew what to do. She should support Kyo in his fight to lift his people out of poverty, even if it meant opposing oppressors. Soon, Inge and Kyo saw their hard work pay off. However, a dark and unexpected force was approaching. It would instantly revolutionize their world, including their growing family and happiness. Inge and Kyo discovered joy despite political issues and good acts. The joy of family. They spent time together when not at the palace or political gatherings. They soon produced gorgeous daughters Kanari and Mayuri. Kao and Inge wanted their girls to provide a link between countries, optimism, and a reminder of their love. People of Shan State were thrilled for the royals. Each girl's birth blessed the kingdom. The young princesses were blessed and gifted by people from across the realm. Family meant new beginnings and tranquility and stability to them. Kao and Inge and their two daughters radiated serenity, unity, and hope. Inge's happiest years may have been these. She found purpose in family, career, and supporting her husband. Their unity filled her. She never envisioned this existence as natural as breathing to her. She enjoyed every smile, step, and moment her girls took, and she was grateful for everything she and Sao had done for their people. After finding their stride and life flowing at a nice, hopeful pace, murmurs of turmoil returned. Their hard-earned stability was threatened by political changes in Burma. It was a confusing moment. She was content with family and friends a few days earlier. That life ended. Inge learned a terrifying truth when the soldiers arrested Kyo. She was alone in the house and couldn't leave or talk to anyone. The sound was hard to hear in the calm house. The walls that once held love and joy felt like jail. That left Inge with many questions for days. They took Sao. Why? What would they do with him? She urged military officials and talked to anyone who knew something to gain even a little information. Every time they attempted, they got silence or confusing, harsh answers. Her spouse had left and she feared she would never see him again. Inge remained hopeful even amid dire situations. She believed Kala was alive and could be revived. The truth became brutally apparent as the weeks passed. Prison and the terrible truth-seeking. The new rulers imprisoned Inge and her children in the palace walls. She was restricted to a confined area, and troops recorded everything she did, that she would only be imprisoned temporarily and things would soon return to normal. As the weeks passed, it became evident she was being held captive. From a home of love and laughter, the castle was now a golden cage. NG hoped Kyo would return daily. She kept filing complaints, appealing with officials, and contacting everyone in power to get answers. No one from the new government answered her many inquiries. Every story the palace officials told about executions and disappearances terrified her. After months of uncertainty, she heard something. She was whispered to. A royal staffer who felt sorry for her told her Kyo had been relocated to a secret location. Political prisoners were sent to learn. Inge grabbed her, only hope Sao might be alive with all her power. She then addressed her kids. She tried to protect them and keep things normal within the palace while she was terrified. She read to them, taught them history, and reminded them of their loving father. Although her anguish was hurting her, she was a source of strength and solace to them. After 2 years in prison, Inge decided she had to leave Burma. She needed to escape, find independence, and possibly discover her husband's true nature. Escape and find tranquility. By 1964, Kyaw had served 2 years in prison. Inge was devastated without him. The once bustling house was now gloomy, and each day without her spouse felt like a steady descent into darkness. The Burmese government's silence was evident. Sao's location were unknown, and she couldn't be sure her family was secure. She felt she had to go for her daughter's future and her health. Years of captivity ended with the chance to escape. Inge and her daughters left Burma thanks to an Austrian embassy worker who risked his life to offer them bogus travel documents. Inge's determination kept her going despite the trip's danger and uncertainty. We left Burma for our own and her daughter's safety. Also, we had to find out what happened to her husband. Inge returned to Austria expecting to feel better, but she was wrong. Her homeland was safe but unpeaceful. Her bad experiences followed her like a cloud, and not knowing what happened to Sao hurt her. She kept thinking about his last moments. Was he suffering? Was she and the girls on his mind in his final hours? People who didn't get her tale were cruel and uncaring. Because they looked Burmese, other youngsters teased her girls and called them cruel names. Inge no longer considered Austria home. Inge bravely moved to Colorado, where her love affair with Sao began, to find consolation. Inge tried starting over in Colorado. She became a teacher and focused on her students while hiding her pain. She couldn't forget Sao or the doubts about his fate. Starting again, she focused on finding the truth. She felt safe in Colorado, but not at peace. Inge persisted in seeking solutions. She was determined to know what happened to her spouse. Inge spent years searching for her spouse after fleeing. She sent many letters to the Burmese government, but they were disregarded. She asked thoughtful, respectful, but forceful questions to get the truth. She received only unclear, nasty, or silent responses. She seemed farther from the truth every day. The official account was silent. Finally, as if the universe had favored her, she received her last revelation before dying. A confirmation that broke and completed her long story. After decades, Inge couldn't ignore Sao's disappearance stories. The reports were first unclear and disconcerting, but they were becoming stronger and heading to a heartbreaking conclusion. Her husband didn't vanish. He was probably slain in prison. She felt her beloved Sao was dead, even though she had never seen his body or been told. It was too dreadful to tell herself, so she kept it to herself. Later, an unexpected visitor arrived. A former Burmese government employee with a low-level job called Inge. He claimed to know Kyaw's fate. He thought she should know. Although the meeting was brief and serious, she would always remember how it made her feel. The man confirmed her long-held belief. Indeed, Kyaw was assassinated shortly after capture. The unhappy man murmured, "I'm sorry we lied." Inge listened silently as her heart broke again. Though brutally honest, the remarks were both curse and blessing. The truth was revealed to her in the worst way after years of searching. To keep his fans and admirers from learning about his demise, the official stated Kyaw was killed. He claimed the military feared Kyaw's might, his innovative ideas and abilities to inspire resistance. The news shocked and delighted Inge. The solution she had been seeking was found. She feared this fact for a long time. She could forget about her spouse because she knew he died not as a forgotten man, but as someone whose life had stood for something bigger. It took decades to hear the truth, and it would plague her till the end. This heartbreaking but not surprising revelation inspired Inge to honor Kyaw by turning her grief into a cause to preserve his legacy. Last Mahadevi leave. Inge's despair altered when she learned Kyaw's fate. It became a less destructive grief. She didn't want to quit, so she finished their work to honor her lover. Her memoir recounted her love, sacrifice, and sadness. Her book Twilight Over Burma gave justice workers hope. The husband she lost to tyranny was memorialized. Her book earnings helped Inge start a fund for Burmese refugees and migrants. Her husband was killed by the authorities that evicted people. She worked hard as an activist to aid fleeing oppression. Her acts preserved So's ideal of a fair and just Burma. People worldwide admired her resilience in the face of tremendous tragedy. Inge died peacefully at home in Colorado in February 2023. She lived 90 years. Her life demonstrated the power of love, strength, and determination. A tale for all ages and backgrounds. She made sure Kyaw was never forgotten, even if she couldn't bring him back. Her and his stories formed a living homage to their shared principles, a timeless legacy of bravery, hope, and human spirit.